Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I'm Agi Keramidas, and my mission is to inspire you to grow, stand out, and take action towards the next level of your life. I interview leaders, authors, successful entrepreneurs, spiritual teachers, exceptional people who will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week and make sure you subscribe to get them as soon as they are released. In today's show, it is my real pleasure to speak with Brian Lovegrove. Brian, you are a leadership developer and results coach and an Amazon best-selling author. You started your own personal development at a very young age, and actually your first job in the industry was helping promote seminars for Tony Robbins. During the years, you have partnered with some of the biggest names in the personal growth industry. You have created your system, the 5 Keys of Success, and you are passionate about helping your clients design and implement the strategies to truly become successful and fulfilled in every aspect of their life, what you call being incredible. Brian, welcome to Personal Development Mastery. It's a real pleasure to speak with you today.
Well, thank you, Agi. It's a pleasure to be here and to share some of this with your audience.
I'm very much looking forward to it, and I can't wait to start with, I would love to hear that story when you're 17 and you listen. I suppose it was an Anthony Robbins cassette tapes at that time.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit about the experience?
Well, we'll start at the very beginning. See, I was introduced to personal development at a very young age. My father was a commercial real estate broker, and I grew up in Montana. And anytime we left town, we were going to be going a long way for a long time. And so my dad would plug in these tape series from work. And of course, this was back before the iPod, the noise canceling headphones, and that great, wonderful device that many of us grew up with, the Sony Walkman. So I got stuck listening to whatever he put in there. So I got introduced to the greats. Guys like Earl Nightingale, Jim Rohn, my favorite, Zig Ziglar. And then when I was 17, and you stop to think about when you were 17, what did you spend your money on? I actually went and spent my money on Tony Robbins' program, Unlimited Power. And that was the cassette tapes, and I wore those out. I actually went and bought a second set of cassettes off of eBay because I worn out a couple of my tapes and I needed to replace them. And so, yes, I started at a very young age, been doing it ever since, off and on, bit of a seminar junkie. But my biggest challenge, Doggy, was I wasn't really getting the results that I wanted.
You bring me then nicely to ask you, during this journey, because you started at a very young age, personal development, much younger than most people that I know or have spoken with, and I can only imagine, the ups, the downs, the twists and turns and everything. And we were discussing about this just before we started recording, about your big realization on why this personal development, this amount of personal development was not giving you the results. So do you want to share first of all, the story behind it, how the aha moment happened?
Well, there was a lot of frustration because, again, I knew what to do, but I wasn't doing it. And for the longest time, it was like, why couldn't I accomplish this? I knew what to do, but I wasn't following through. I would go and I would try a little bit and it would be hard, or it wouldn't work the way I thought it would. It wouldn't work perfectly the first time out of the gate. And like most people, I'd give up, or it would get hard, or it would get scary, or there was something that would hold me back. And for a very long time, I didn't realize what that was. Because, they would be talking about, the fear of failure or the procrastination or all of these things. And I didn't really realize that I had that problem. Because from a fear perspective, fear was like paralyzing fear. But I never experienced that when I was doing my business or doing the personal growth realm. But I realized later on when I sat down and was really introduced to what fear is and how it holds us back, and how really it's the subconscious that's using the fear to help you stay safe and comfortable, to survive. We're not made, our subconscious isn't designed to make us successful or make us happy even. It's designed to keep us safe and to survive. And those are usually opposing views. Because anytime we want to grow, where do we got to go? We got to go out into the growth zone. And out into the growth zone is outside the comfort zone. And that's where the big ugly monster likes to show up and go, hey, what are you doing? Get back in the room. So
yeah,
it really was actually, you asked the story. When did I learn it? Well, I was actually sitting in one of my education programs. It was another seminar I bought, invested several thousands of dollars. And I remember it was after lunch, 6,000 people in the room. And the guy got up there and he really introduced me to what fear truly was. And I was sitting there and I used the term gobsmacked in the book, Unleash Your Fear, that I really wrote about this experience that I had, because really it was like I saw this enemy for what it truly was. And I saw that it had a positive intent, but it was not in alignment with where I was trying to go. And so that made me shift my focus from, okay, it's not about I have to go learn more, because that's the other challenge that I was running into. I was running around thinking that I needed to go learn more. And there's some magical piece of information that once I learn that piece of information, then everything will be roses and cherries, whatever, pick whatever analogy you want to use. But everything would be easy and successful, and then, easy street from here on out. But that's not the case. You actually got to go through it and do the hard stuff. And that's what I didn't really recognize. It's not learning about more. It's doing it long enough till you get good at
it. Can you tell me what was that you realized about fear at that time? What was it that was missing? And at that, you said that you saw fear in a different way. You realized what it was. Can you describe that for me?
Well, really, I really saw how fear was holding me back.
Right.
I as he was sitting there explaining how the subconscious uses fear to keep you safe, to keep you between the lines. I didn't think I had that problem. I didn't think I had that self-sabotage was a real thing. I didn't get that. But it was it was just the way it was explained to me. And it was like, and I saw, I kind of, as I sat there gobsmacked, like going, oh my gosh, this is my problem. This is why I have failed over and over and over. This is why I haven't been successful. This is why I never followed through, because I allowed my fear to hold me back. But I also saw where I was successful, where I did do it long enough, when I was able to achieve the level of results that I wanted and was able to get to where I was, because, I had some success. My problem was I wasn't stringing them together to where I was really going up. I was going up and down, up and down. And so it wasn't a continual growth. I was up and down, and I was ending up coming back down to the same level or worse, lower. Because at one point, I ended up weighing over 260 pounds, depressed, thought I had a heart attack, but it was really an anxiety attack because of where I was in the situation. And it took me stopping and realizing, hey, you got to do a better job of taking care of yourself. And, I've lost the weight, down 60 pounds, and really made a tremendous progress towards who I wanted to be. And it comes back to one of the biggest keys in the 5 keys to success is clarity. which is knowing what you want. And then the second biggest key, which is the commitment, being willing to pay the price in order to achieve it.
I will come back to the 5 keys of success. I still want to ask you something more about fear. You said that you realized that you thought that you didn't have any fear before, and you just realized how it was presenting. And I can relate with that, because I believe that fear many times does not present itself to us as fear as such. What we usually have a very specific idea of what fear is. It's like if we see a physical danger or something like that. But this self-sabotage is very insidious. It can present itself like, I'm not in the mood for it, or some very, very subtle things which we tend to ignore and say, oh, well, I'm not in the mood for it, but it's fear behind it. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Fear is at the root of it. And you know, when we were younger, we didn't want to be called chicken or afraid or being a coward, or heaven forbid somebody triple dog dared you. And so we learned that being afraid was bad, that fear was bad. And so we avoided fear. And so we did things to avoid fear. Now, we also learned not to make mistakes. You know, our education process, making mistakes was bad. We got our hands smacked. So again, something else to avoid. So again, the fear of failure, the fear of looking stupid, the fear of criticism, the fear of, the fear of. We don't, as adults, the thing is we don't call fear fear. We have a different name for it to make it more palatable and more tolerable. We call it anxiety. We call it, concern. We call it distraction. We call it procrastination. Or worse, one that some people wear as a badge of courage, we call it stress.
Yes.
Oh, I'm stressed. No, you're scared. You're not addressing the pain that's in front of you. And that's really where I kind of help people, because I wrote a book called Unleash Your Fear. And because it's really when you learn what fear is, what its purpose is, you can then turn that fear from being your enemy to being your ally. Because imagine what would happen if you could be afraid of not accomplishing what you set out to do, afraid of missing out on all the potential that you have within you. That is the fear that I want to help people have.
Even though I know that the question is going to sound probably difficult to answer in such a short conversation, but to switch your mindset from fearing what's uncomfortable, shall we say, or what will put you out of your comfort zone, switching to fearing staying at the same place and not progressing with your life. How can one go about and do a mindset shift like that?
Well, there's an exercise that I show people and teach people how to do, but it really comes down to one thing. What are you focusing on? For example, if I was to walk in, take one of your children, hold a gun to their heads and says, you need to go, grow. You need to go, I give you your go accomplish your big goal in the next 48 hours. How motivated are you going to be to do that? You're going to be extremely motivated. Compared to right now, where are you? On a scale of, that's a level 12 on a scale of 0 to 10. Where are you right now on that scale? That varies dependent upon what you're focusing on. If you're focusing on all the work and all of the hard stuff that you got to do, your level of motivation is going to be a 2 or a 3. But if you're focusing on what you get, on what you will accomplish, about what that really means for you, and you take a deeper dive into, well, what does that mean? There's something that we talk about in the marketing realm called the benefits of the benefits. Okay, so if you want to go, get a new cell phone. Okay, well, what's the benefit of a new cell phone? It's faster. Okay, that's a feature. It's faster. I get more done. Okay, that's the real benefit. Well, what does that mean? It means that I'm able to be more efficient. It means I'm able to do more. I'm able to take care of my clients better, on and on and on and on. And the deeper you dive into what it truly means, clarity, you then will have the motivation to move through the muck, to take the journey, to do the hard stuff that powers you through. You've heard the story of, it's about your why. Know what your why is. That's good, because that's the fuel that helps you get through the hard stuff. But most people don't spend enough. Oh, my why is my kids. Okay, great. Why? Go deeper. Mm-hmm. What does it mean? Mm-hmm. But also, what does it mean when you don't follow through? Tony Robbins talks about pain versus pleasure. Mm-hmm. A lot of times our why is about pleasure, right? The challenge is there's a lot of pain between us and that pleasure. Yeah. And so what you're doing is you create pain for staying put. What does it mean for you not to follow through? What message, if your kids are your why, what message are you sending your kids if you don't follow through? What does it mean to your kids if you don't follow through? So if you don't become successful, you can't give them what you want. You can't pay for that vacation. You can't take them to Disneyland. You can't pay for their college. You can't, on and on and on. Mm-hmm. And you stack the pain for staying put, and you stack the pleasure for moving forward. And it really comes down to something as simple as that. But the problem is we struggle to do that when we're just sitting down by ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's where having a coach who kind of guides you through this process that helps you really look at it and dive deeper and deeper and deeper. Because the deeper that you mine that, the more powerful and automatic it becomes to take the action you need to take to move you forward.
And I think that's the key point here, this automaticity, to be able to switch your focus automatically, because it's one thing to, know our outcome or really focus on the why, the benefits of the benefits and so on, and write pages of it. But unless we are able to bring our focus on that at will, then when I suppose it happens with me, I suppose it happens with many people, that ability to focus on that gets completely forgotten when something is overwhelming or difficult or very uncomfortable. I think the skill lies to actually practice that and take deliberately your focus from that towards that outcome. I think that is the challenge, I think, for many people.
Yes, and you're exactly right, because again, that's the subconscious trying to keep you safe. Because again, it wants to avoid pain. The subconscious main purpose is to keep you safe, right? Yeah. That means avoiding pain. So you got to create the pain of staying put. Because if you don't create the pain of staying put, then the subconscious can't work for you. And so it's paying attention to the pain that you're experiencing right now, that you were tolerating. That was one of the great questions that I got out of Tony Robbins UPW. What are you tolerating in your life right now? And really dive into that. What are you tolerating? What do I deserve? Because again, we've got this problem of, we're not worthy. what do I really deserve? What have I earned? What do I deserve? And we deserve so much. We put, who we are. And that's, again, it goes back to the value we put on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And how much do we value ourselves? Because at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. How much do we value ourselves? And worth the effort? Is the goal worth the effort? And we may not value ourselves as much, but again, that who are we doing it for? Again, what are they worth? And stacking the value and making it worth the effort. Again, you've got to be willing to pay the price in order to accomplish your goals. And in order for you to be willing to pay that price, you have to see the value in the accomplishment of the goal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a it's a great way that you're describing it, and also very, I think, practical in a sense that, it makes sense to implement in such a way.
Yes.
I would also I'm going to change the subject a little bit. You mentioned earlier, and I think it's very important to discuss this, the difference that there is in terms of growth and personal development between learning and doing. And many people, myself included, and I think yourself included as well, and I think most of us have got kind of addicted, I will use that word, because I've heard it quite a lot, or it's called junkie, personal development junkie, and all these things, which, we keep on learning, and we get a high, a dopamine rush by learning new things, and usually the events, for example, Tony Robbins, are in a big environment of tremendous energy, so you feel good.
Yes.
However, the trap with all that is that all this learning without actually doing something with it is, I will use the word, it might be a harsh word, but it's pointless, really. Because knowledge which is not implemented, it's completely useless. Well, what's the use of it? It's only useful when you apply it to something. So that's something I want your thoughts about. What's the missing links, I would say, between learning and taking the action? Maybe it's fear that you've been saying, but shall we discuss this a little bit more?
Yes. Okay. So, well, there's several things that have popped into my head along the way.
Yes.
I tell people we don't have a learning problem. We have a doing problem. Mm-hmm. There is so much information out there. There are, John Maxwell, who's I'm a certified coach, trainer, and speaker with, has written over 100 books. The information is there. You want to be the best leader in the world, go read all of John's material, but that won't make you a great leader. Mm-hmm. I mean, his best-selling book ever is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Mm-hmm. And why is it a great book? Because the principles are in here. But if you read this book, does that make you a leader? No, it doesn't. It's only when we apply and implement the strategies that we learn in the books, that we learn in the seminars, and we learn in the programs. It's only when we apply and implement them to where they become our new normal do they really add value to us. It feels great going to the seminar. There's a lot of Tony Robbins specifically. I love UPW. It's a fantastic experience. Full immersion. You get to really feel the experience. But the problem is you feel like you're drinking from 5 fire hoses for 3.5 days. I remember the fire walk at 1:00 in the morning on the first day.
Yeah.
And it was like, and then you probably have heard, I was encouraged to take the next day off just to process the information. But okay, so for me, it was 5 days. I put my life on hold for 5 days. What happens when you come home? you unpause and your avalanche of all the demands that were put on hold.
Mm-hmm.
And so are you focusing on all the growth that you just did? No, you're focusing on getting caught up and getting back in the routines. The same routines that gave you the same results that you don't want why you went to the seminar in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you get back up and you're able to breathe again, you go look, you'll find the book. You go, oh yeah, that was a great experience. But what has changed? All the energy and all the excitement that you had at the event is now gone. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, okay, how do I implement? How do I try to do all this stuff? And that's one of the reasons why when I do my education, we do it differently. Because it's not about learning the information. You know, if you've done UPW once and you go back and you do again and again and again, what are you looking for? What is that piece? You keep going back to get the high. Like you said, there are people that are addicted to the high of this. And that's what they do. That's what they want. They don't necessarily truly want to grow. Because if they truly wanted to grow, they would implement. But they don't know how to implement, because that's, unfortunately, Tony does a good job of that, but there's a lot of other people that it's like going to the class and they wave, okay, go have fun. And there's no support or help on the back end. And it's like, okay, how do I implement this stuff? I learned this when I invested several thousands of dollars in another program that actually I picked up the bonus, which was the 6-month coaching program. Mm. Now, I met with a guy for 6 times once a month. Mm-hmm. I got more done in those 6 months than I had the previous 5 years around this particular topic. And I realized that I did more because, again, when I went to get on the phone with him, it was the pain of telling him I didn't follow through. So I actually realized because after the 6 months were over, I started slacking off again. I wasn't following through as much. Mm-hmm. I actually realized I did more in the week before the call than I did the previous 3 weeks. It's like, oh, yep, I got to get on the call, which is one of the reasons why one of the big things that I help people with is accountability. Mm-hmm. In fact, actually, that's the 4th key in the 5 keys of success. Mm-hmm. Is accountability, because until we hold ourselves accountable, usually with an external person, if you do it right, you have somebody else and you're paying them. And I go into this in another program about why you want a true accountability coach, because I'm sure you've been to your people as well. You've gone to a program, you invested in, oh yeah, we're going to have accountability partners for the next 6 months. Woohoo. Problem is they're in the same boat you are. They're making the same excuses you are. Mm-hmm. They're at the same level of education as you are. Mm-hmm. They can't help you solve the problems you're running into. And so again, we end up going, and the other challenge is a lot of people don't want to be held accountable. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Because again, who held us accountable at the very beginning? It's our parents and our teachers. And that was, hey, I remember being a teenager and I was rebelling then. And a lot of people are still rebelling. Mm-hmm. And they go, oh, I can handle it all by myself. And this is like, no, you can't. Because you can't see what you're missing because you're in the picture. The outside perspective will show you what you're missing. Mm-hmm. In this whole process, from learning to doing, the challenge is the actual doing part. How do you learn? How do you apply? And that's one of the things, Tony Robbins, he covers the whole gamut in UPW. He's like, okay, there's so much information. Where do I start? Pick one thing, not 12. Okay, maybe 2. Okay, you can do one related to your business or career, and one around your health. Okay, you can pick 2 things. No more than 3. You pick more than 3, you're going to fail at almost all of them. You got to focus on one or two things, and then you stay focused on it until it becomes your new normal. You know, I use weight loss as a great example. You know, if you haven't been to the gym in forever, where I start people off is go to the gym. That's your objective. Today, success is you going to the gym. If you get to the gym and you realize, I can't do it today, that's okay. That's still a success. But chances are, if you go to the gym, you're going to go inside. And if you're going to go inside, you're going to do something. You get on the treadmill for 20 minutes. You go lift, you know, do a few reps with the weights. Go swim in the pool. You'll do something. Because again, once you get there. But again, if you drive into the parking lot and you go, I can't do it today, that's still a success because you went to the gym. And it's an easy, make it stupidly easy. Everybody can go to the gym, right? Okay, and then once you get consistent going to the gym, because of that habit, you're already there. Well, I'm here. I might as well do something. Okay, so yeah, and you visit with a trainer. He gives you a plan. Okay, you go work the plan. And eventually, again, but what's the key habit? The key habit is showing up. Mm-hmm. Making the time to show up. So what's that key habit for what you want to do? For what you really need to grow? What's the biggest area you need to grow in? Identify that. And then what are the specific things you need to do in order to achieve that level of growth? What's the behavior that you need to create? One of the things we talk about is what's the leading indicator versus the lagging indicator. Mm-hmm. You know, for example, a salesperson. The lagging indicator is how much money did you make, how much commission did you get at the end of the month? The leading indicator is how many cold calls did you make? Mm-hmm. So we start there. We focus on the sales, the cold calls, because we know the game. We make enough cold calls, we're going to get enough opportunities for appointments, we're going to have enough opportunities to do presentations, to make enough sales that is going to make my commission check go up. So what is that when it comes to personal development? Is that sitting down and spending 30 minutes a day reading the book? Is it sitting down and for 30 minutes and practicing that strategy? Pick a strategy that you learned, and then how do I implement that strategy? How do I break that down into nice, easy steps? And then get busy. Take action. Tony says, take massive action, which is one of the biggest reasons why it's number 3 on the 5 keys of success.
That was a wonderful description on my original question about, going from the learning to implementing. And I will offer just my own quick recap of all these things that you said, just for...
I did take the long way around on that.
That was, it was amazing. And I was taking notes because... it's very important, and I think if someone understands that process and how it goes in terms of personal growth, then they have discovered something very big, that they can actually shift their life. And so my then recap of what you said is that in order to implement, or if the question is how to implement, the first thing we need to look at is accountability, and external accountability, not someone who is our peer and we have the similar level, shall we say, of growth, someone who's completely objective to our situation or our task. And then you said, out of all the wealth of knowledge that you have gained from a book or an event, pick one or two or three maximum things and really focus on those and nothing else apart from that. And the key there is to be consistent until they become a habit. And habits make it as easy as you can. When you were describing your that example earlier, I remembered, and I have done that myself because I run, and now I'm actually training for the London Marathon in a few months. And there are times that, you know very well, the last thing I want to do is go out and run. So I find this trick to myself. So I'm saying, instead of going out and doing 10 miles or whatever distance was meant to do, I'll just go out for 10 minutes or for 5 minutes, just to go out. It's better than not going out at all. Right. And of course, by that, then it's much easier. Once I'm out, I will most certainly do more than that. So it's a very easy way to, let's say, trick your mind into something that So that was my summary, shall we say, of what you said.
Yes. The one thing that came to mind is negotiating with ourselves. And how we negotiate. Oh, well, okay. It's kind of like, it's this give and take. Oh, I'm too tired. And a lot of times we just give in. It's like, but no, I got to complete the task. And so if there's enough motivation, it's like, okay, so you make it to, because again, once you get, you got to get changed. You got to put on the shoes. You got to go, maybe you drive to wherever you're going to start. You're not going out the front door and you're going to go run. So, all right, well, I'll just go run for 10 minutes. Well, 10 minutes in, you're there. Oh, I'm already here. Let's go another mile.
Yeah.
And I've heard, a marathon is running 1 mile 26 times. So just keep running the next mile.
Yeah.
And that's a great analogy to us moving forward. You've heard, and I've heard it too so many times, is, oh, if you want to be successful, you have to go read 50 books a year. That's great if you're going to want to be exposed to the information. It's not great if you're wanting to grow. If you're wanting to truly learn and apply and implement the strategies that you find in a great book, go read that great book 50 times and do the exercises in the book. I can't tell you how many times have you read the book and you don't do the exercises at the end of the chapter? Oh, I'll come back and do those later. These are things that we're negotiating with ourselves, because again, that's really good. Oh yeah. We're getting that. We're addicted to the learning piece. You see, we don't get high on drugs. We get high on learning. But the high that you get from accomplishment and from success is 10 times more powerful than the high of learning.
Yes.
Because there is a better high out there.
Absolutely. Tell me, you mentioned during our conversation, you mentioned 4 out of the 5 keys of success. So you said, and I would like a little bit of a brief overview of them. So you said the clarity, commitment, actions, and accountability. You mentioned this during the conversation. So do you want just to give us an overview of this so we can understand a bit better?
Absolutely. I came up with the 5 keys because, again, I've got lots of shelves full of books, programs, tape series, different things that I have done time and time again. I was exposed to a lot of information. And I came down and I boiled it down to, okay, what are the key behaviors? What are the key things we need to master in order to be successful? And I went back, and a lot of the great stuff had 4 of the 5. Some of them had 3. A lot of them had 2, at least 2. Some had 3, a few had 4, but none of them really had all 5. And so number 1 is clarity. You've got to be clear on what you want, where you're going, where you are, as well as your why. And the big one that a lot of people miss is the plan. How do I go from point A to point B? Oh, you get a nice big vision. Great. How are you going to get there? What are you going to do today to get you there? What's, if that's the summit of your mountain, what's the first base camp? What's the trek that's going to take you to the first base camp? And focus on that first. Commitment is number 2. And this is one where a lot of people miss the boat, is they are not committed to paying the price to achieve their goal. They would rather be more comfortable than they would be successful. The third one is taking the action. And this is one, again, when it gets hard, failing forward is the way that you succeed. Number 4 is accountability, because and this was really the rocket booster for me. When I started having regular coaches in my life, my trajectory went from a little bit of growth to exponential growth. The 5th key is self-mastery. And I call it get correct. Because again, it's when we focus on those things that truly matter, those behaviors and habits that truly change us, to make us realize our full potential. I mentioned the performance gap at the beginning, what we know and could do and what we consistently do. That gap is filled with fear. And so part of your process in developing self-mastery is to close your performance gap and to develop the momentum that we're looking for. Because I remember I loved the story that Zig Ziglar told about the 2 guys on the road, and they stop and want a drink of water on the hot Texas day. And they go to the old-fashioned water pump at the well. And you got to pump it, and you pump it, and pump it, and pump it, and pump it. And you don't get any water. Maybe get a little trickle. And then you got to pump it. Because again, what you're doing, for those people that may not be familiar with this because you're too young to know what this truly is, because you're used to being able to go up to a tap and water just automatically flows out. What you're doing is you're pulling the water from the very bottom down at the bottom of the well, and you're pulling it up this pipe, and you're creating a vacuum. That draws the water up the pipe to the top, to the spigot where it's going to actually come out. And we got to put in a lot of effort to get that first water out. And this is true with success. You got to pump and pump and pump. But the problem is most people don't pump long enough, because the learning spectrum is much different than what we understand it to be. Because we think learning stops when we're exposed to the ideas and understand the theory. That's not learning. That's like the continuum is, you start, that's conscious incompetence. You now know what you don't know. It's only when you get consciously competent that you start to get good. Mastery is when it becomes unconsciously competent, when it becomes an automatic habit. And so what are those key things that you need to do to stay consistent? What are those things that are going to help you reach the level of success that you want in your life? Because that's really what matters, is just doing those few things. It's not 50,000 things. It's not the latest fad. I've met some very successful people who do, and they've learned, they do certain key things consistently. It's not necessarily about trying to do more or learn more or whatever the next flavor thing is. Because I went back and I was listening to this stuff over and over and over again. And these 5 things kept popping up. And you go back to the very, very beginning in the Greeks, Aristotle. I mean, success or excellence is a habit. You know, that right there tells me that it's everybody's just spinning the same thing over and over again. I'm spinning the same thing over and over again, but hopefully in a way that causes people to move forward. And I tell people, I can't take the journey for you, but I'm happy and would love to take the journey with you. Because see, that's the biggest challenge that I think a lot of us run into. We're trying to take the journey alone. And when we do it alone, we get scared. It gets hard. And we're not comfortable there, which causes us, again, to run back to the comfort zone. But when there's somebody there that we can say, I'm struggling, help me. Hey, man, you know, you've fallen down. You've fallen into the pit. You've run into the ditch. Having a coach coming alongside you, pick you up, dust you off, says, hey, man, you got this. See, here's what you did wrong. Here's where you learn from your mistake. Now move forward, keep going. You got this. And that's what it's all about, is helping people move forward.
I think your message is very clear, loud and clear. So thank you very much for sharing that. And especially what you said about mastery, because my podcast is Personal Development Mastery. This topic of mastery is something that I have a great deal of fascination about, and it was very intriguing to find out your thoughts on that. So I really appreciate it. Brian, I would also like to ask you some quick fire questions to start wrapping things up for today. So my first one is, what does the term personal development mean to you?
Personal development means growing. It means taking the time, because again, development is different than training or learning. Development is a process. Growth is a process. It's going through that process. That's what is development. Again, moving from being exposed to the idea to where that idea is now the normal behavior for you. That's what personal development is all about for me.
Awesome. And let's say you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self, or what's the one piece of advice you would have given him?
Well, take the 5 cases or the incredible 91-day journey. Learn how to focus on doing the right things, and then consistently do them over and over and over again. That's the biggest thing that I could, if I could go back and tell myself 18, consistently take action on those things that really truly matter for you. Because that was what I missed out on for so long, was I didn't take the right action consistently.
I get it. And let's say you had a magic wand and you could wave it and change something in the world as it is today. What would you change?
I would, and I love that one. If I could change one thing in the world, I would get everybody to accept personal responsibility for themselves and their actions. I think that alone would solve 90% of the world's problems. Simply because society promotes victimhood.
Yes.
To being a sheep, being dependent upon somebody else for what you have. But when we take control, when we take ownership of our lives, that is the first real step into freedom. And that is where we will find our success.
Amazing. Thank you for this. Brian, emerging from this conversation, I know there have been quite a lot so far, things that the listener could pick up and implement. But if I were to ask you right now, we have concluded almost our conversation. If you were to give to the listener one actionable item, something they can pick up out of everything and implement straight away or tomorrow, because you did say pick one or two. So
yes.
What's one? What's the one?
Well, focus on the one thing. Pick one thing and then focus on that one thing and then get good at it. So many times people are trying to shotgun their personal development. Pick one thing to focus on. Master that. And once you've mastered that, it should have, ideally you're picking what is I refer to as a key performance topic or a key performance habit that will automatically, it's like throwing the rock into the pond. The ripples will have positive impacts in the other areas of your life. And once you focus on that one habit, pick that one habit, spend the next 90 days focusing on that one habit. And then sit down. What are the behaviors I need to focus on? What are the habits that I need to work on? And get clear on what it's going to be and what you're going to do about it, creating that plan. And then also sit and this is, well, okay, why is this so important? Get the commitment down. And then get busy taking the actions. Get somebody to hold you accountable to complete those actions. And that will cause you to grow. That's the 5 keys of success.
Very, very succinctly put. I love it. Brian, how can people connect with you and find out more about your work?
Well, we've got a lot of great information available at 𝗵𝗹𝗂𝘀𝗆𝑐𝑜aching.com. I do my own podcast called the 5 Keys of Success. We are just getting started with that. We've only got about 8 to 10 episodes out right now, but we're continuing to grow that. I actually sat down, and one of the things that I was doing was I was planning out the calendar and when we're going to be doing what. We've got about 40 different podcasts already scheduled and planned out. So we've got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. But one of the things that we've spent maybe about an hour together here today, and this is a lot longer than I usually go when I do a podcast. But there was probably some information that I didn't dive as deep into as that your audience may want to learn more about. I did a masterclass called Become Unstoppable. And it takes a deeper dive into the fear and a deeper dive into the 5 keys of success. And so if your people are interested in learning more, you can go to becomeunstoppable.info to register for that free masterclass. We do them live about once a month. And if you don't want to wait, you can get the replay. So it's an opportunity for your audience to be able to go learn more and take a deeper dive into this material. But it also gives them an opportunity to learn more about me in this process. So if you're listening and you want to go ahead and register for that, maybe in the car, you can actually text the word results to 77948. And that'll actually bring up the webpage so you can register for that. Otherwise, you can go to becomeunstoppable.info, which I'm sure will be in the show notes somewhere.
Yes.
And Agi will do a good job of making sure that you get connected with that.
Absolutely. Brian, I want to thank you very much. This has been a truly absorbing conversation for me. I really enjoyed it. And what you said earlier, that normally your podcasts are not as long, I hope that's a good thing and not a bad thing for this one.
Oh, I tell people, you got to be careful. You wind me up and I'm going to go and go and go and go, just like the Energizer Bunny.
I want to wish you all the very best. I really enjoyed our conversation, and thank you very much for your time and the insights that you shared with us today. Any last parting words?
Get busy. That's the biggest thing that I wish people would do more of, is just get busy. Because again, your people are here. They've been listening. They've been learning. So now go do. It's time to do, people. Get cranking.
I appreciate you listening. If you enjoyed it, please share this episode with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to support my podcast and gain access to exclusive content from me and my guests, then become my patron. The link is in the show notes, or you can type bit.ly/pdmpat. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.